All right. I am co-director Gary Mitchell. This is year 3. Woo! Joe and I think we know what we're doing, so it's about to get dangerous. Just a reminder to everybody, please, if you have one of these little smarty phony things, please use the app. If you enjoy the panel, please use the app rating. The DragonCon overlords do listen to the app ratings. That's how we got more stuff. Ooh. So if you like the panel, may I humbly request 5 stars. If you did not like the panel, we're on the Whedon track. We are here to discuss Flash! He'll save every one of us! So, welcome! Let's kick DragonCon off with a bolt of lightning. And introduce yourselves, panel, and I'm going to get the hell out of your way.
Howdy, everyone. My name is Mike Gordon. I feel like I had to be here.
You did.
I've been a Gordon fan all my life. And it's pronounced Gordon. I am the co-host of the Earth Station 1 weekly podcast, as well as the creator of Tiki Zombie.
I'm Debbie Vigay. I'm a New York Times bestselling author of dark fantasy mysteries and thrillers, and branching out into adventure just recently. I'm also on a show called Dr. Geek's Laboratory.
And I'm Dr. Scott Vigay of Dr. Geek's Laboratory, archaeologist and author and actor now.
Mm-hmm.
My name is JC Delatorre. I am the writer and creator of the IDW comic series Star Mage.
And I'm Melinda Mock.
And I'm Michael French. We host RetroBlasting, which is a YouTube web channel about 80s pop culture, toys, cartoons. We do video breakdowns and deconstructions. And I also am the official social media administrator for Voltron. So it's nice to meet all of you.
Voltron or Lion Voltron?
Both.
For the entire franchise, so for World Events Productions.
Wow.
Wow. Very cool.
All right, good night, everybody.
Mike, your name is Gordon. Moderate.
So, Flash Gordon, 80 years of this character.
Woohoo!
Anybody know the origins, the behind-the-scenes origins of the character?
Are you referring to the history of the character, like prehistory, like the John Carter type stuff that inspired him, or are you referring more to how he was created on the page?
Well, yeah, because I've always found it interesting that, and we'll get right into it, I guess, because I've always found it interesting that Flash was not something that Alex Raymond, was not something that Alex Raymond said, you know what, I got this great idea, I got this great character, I've got this great world I want to build, I'm going to take it somewhere and get it published. In fact, it's one of the things, it's a happy accent where King Features said, we need something to go against Buck Rogers. Buck Rogers is huge. So we need to come up with something. And that's where Alex Raymond came in. And any fans of Alex Raymond here?
I think we all are on some level, because we're all here.
Right. Anybody familiar with the Alex Raymond strips, the original Flash Gordon strips? Not a lot. Okay, but
more than you think.
Yeah. They are available. They are printing them now. I think it's Titan Publishing. Is putting out the volumes.
Actually, there's 2. IDW is doing one, and
Right.
Titan's doing one.
Yeah, IDW's got these big volumes that are reprinting the Sunday strips along with the. Is it Jungle Jim?
Jungle Jim.
Yeah, that look just gorgeous. But those are huge tomes. But the other ones, the Titan ones, are a little bit more affordable, but they're really nice. And I imagine almost everybody here is a fan of the 80s movie. That's right. So and if you're a fan of that, and you want to know where the look came from and a lot of the design work on the creatures and everything, it all starts with Alex Raymond.
Very cool.
Very cool.
So what were your first introductions then to Flash? If not, because none of us are 80 years old.
Well,
That's what you have to do. If somebody just says Flash and doesn't follow it up with a Gordon, you gotta say,
It's true.
That's true.
okay, let's try it. Flash.
Very good.
All right. Well, my first introduction was the Buster Crabbe serials. They were being rerun on television, and that's where I got to see them all. And this last birthday, I got the whole set, which is really kind of cool.
Yeah. And for me, it was the 80s film. And as a little girl, I thought there was nothing more magical that I could ever see than how cool he was and how awesome he was and how cute he was and how wonderful the princesses' costumes were. So
Yeah.
I wanted her
Yeah.
entire wardrobe.
Yeah, likewise. That was where I first saw it too, was the 80s movie, and I totally wanted all of her costumes.
Yep.
And I kind of still do.
So do I.
And for me, it was also the 80s movie. I didn't want to wear any of those costumes.
Just for clarity.
Okay,
you
maybe
say.
one of the princesses, okay? No, but I mean, I was just blown away by the movie. And at the time, I'm a young kid, so I didn't realize the cheese factor of the movie. I just saw Flash Gordon just being awesome. And
Yes.
I actually had a very different experience from everybody else. I'm ashamed to say it. I've since seen, of course, the 1980 movie. I've seen the Buster Crabbe serial. I've seen, some of the later incarnations. My first exposure to Flash Gordon was Defenders of the Earth.
Oh, hey!
Which. Okay, I'm really glad I got validation on that.
Oh no, come on! Defenders of the Earth, it was awesome.
Yeah, I
It
know,
had the
but
Phantom even.
I agree,
Yeah.
but some people don't agree with us. So
Those people are wrong. It was one of the few animated series where they killed off a major character.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was completely bizarre and made me fall in love with it. That was the first episode I ever saw. Was the first episode, and it was like, oh, I sold. I gotta watch this whole thing because
it was like the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, but for all the King characters.
right.
Mhm.
Yeah.
definitely.
I mean, how can you not love a show which had a guy with the strength of 10 tigers?
well, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I think it was the Filmation series that came out because of the. It kind of came out around the same time as the movie, though, didn't it? Because I think it kind of balanced each other.
Mhm.
Well, no, there was a Flash Gordon animated series, and then Defenders of the Earth was later.
Right.
I think it came out to compete with.
Yeah, Flash Gordon was 79, and then Defenders of the Earth was like 85, something like that, 86.
Yeah, unlike his counterpart, even though he started out as a competitor to Buck Rogers, Flash really kind of took off even further, and I think most of it was because of the beautiful artwork by Alex Raymond. I mean, Flash Gordon was Buck Rogers was a pretty cool character, but the artwork was pretty stylized and not what you would consider like gorgeous. But Alex really brought these worlds, these alien worlds, to life in a way that appealed to a lot of people. I mean, everybody got the Sunday paper just to look at his artwork.
Just to look at the color.
Yeah, and so that character and that sort of environment translated to the serials like you're talking about with Buster Crabbe, and then later on there was a brief, I think, was it a TV series?
There was something that was filmed in Europe. That was, and then there was something else that came to television eventually. But if you're going chronologically, there's something that was like in Europe, where
Yeah,
they
it was filmed in Germany.
Filmed in Germany.
Yeah, and you can get those really cheap.
Wasn't it filmed not too long after World War II?
Yeah, and you can still
And
see
so
the
it was
damage.
Like
Yeah.
and then they
Yeah,
moved
'cause
it to France or something for the second.
Yeah, because I remember I've seen one of those, and I think you can see like these destroyed buildings, and they use
Right.
those for like Ming has like attacked us. It's like,
Right.
it's kind of weird.
But that's what's kind of interesting about this whole thing is that a lot of it's in the public domain, and so
Right.
and so getting access to it is a little bit odd because you'll have everybody's printed this story or this story, but it's taken a while to get everything out in one format or another.
So then we go to, jump ahead because there's not really a lot of action until the 80s series.
Yeah.
80s movie. And that was another sort of accident because it happened because of Star Wars.
Right.
Dino De Laurentiis had saw an interview with George Lucas, and George had said that he originally wanted to make Flash Gordon, but then decided that he wanted to do his own thing. So Dino said, well, the only way to beat Star Wars and to capitalize on the phenomenon that is Star Wars is to come out with something that George wanted to come out with originally. And so Dino put the wheels in motion, so to speak. And we ended up with the 80 series, which he did not intend to be camp whatsoever. Dino's vision was
That's the scary
strictly
thing.
action and adventure. Now, the actors knew it was camp. The director knew when he was filming it, it was campy. Everybody knew except for Dino. So when they actually premiered the movie, and or when he saw the first cut of it, he was very surprised when people were laughing. He did not care for that at all. But then finally he got the joke, and so. But what are your guys' thoughts on the movie?
Oh, Debbie, you should start. We should all get comfortable.
I'm a huge.
This may take the whole panel.
I'm a huge fan of the 80s film, and I think what makes it even more wonderful for me is I was a very little girl, and of course that thing at the end with the ring and the question mark. I waited for so many years. I'm like, there's got to be a sequel, and I'd ask my parents, "Isn't there going to be a sequel?" Like, I don't, you know. But what amazes me about the film is I loved it as a child. And I love it even more as an adult. I mean, it brings back, not only does it bring back happy, nostalgic childhood memories, but I appreciate so many more things about it. I appreciate all the things that I didn't necessarily understand when I was 7, you know, which bring a lot of layers and depths to it. And it's a very sexy movie, which 7-year-olds don't get.
Very sexy.
You know, and as an adult, I'm like, oh my, you know, there's things you suddenly pick up on one day when you haven't watched it in a few years. But I loved how beautiful it was visually. It's one of the only films where I just admire the colors and the textures, and they created such a complete atmosphere with just how gorgeous things were. And you're like, you know, Mongo's a scary place, but I want to go visit just because it's so beautiful. And I love the characters. I love Flash. He's so fun. Thank you. And Scott and I, you know, get into arguments about, you know, is it okay that he was a football player instead of a polo player?
Yes.
And I say it was totally fine that he was just a football player. But
He's just a man with a man's
he's
courage.
just a man with a man's courage.
But he played for the Jets, though. So
I know, which is why, you know, he clearly had better things to do. But no, I'm a huge fan of the film, and I'm a huge fan of Flash.
what are we up to, Rita?
7.
7?
We gotta keep going, people. I gotta win this bet.
They have a bet going on, and so I'm counting.
There's a flashometer.
Yeah.
Well done.
We have a question.
Yes.
Didn't the cartoon, the Defenders cartoon, sort of continue after the movie? I remember watching the cartoon that it felt like it did answer that question, who picked up the ring, it being Baron, I think. There was a cartoon I kind of remember, but I don't know if it was Defenders of...
It was a different cartoon.
Or was something else I may have watched.
There was a Flash Gordon Saturday morning cartoon, I think by...
Filmation.
Yeah. And then later was the Defenders.
Right. It might have been the Filmation cartoon that answered that question.
Yeah, because Defenders
They had
of
a
the
lot of
Earth,
lizard men,
he
that's
had
the thing
a
I
son, because all the characters had to
stats.
have like a teenager
version of themselves, yeah.
Yeah,
Ugh.
so it was weird.
One where he's skateboarding. Oh.
Yeah, that was the 90s one.
Skateboarding.
Oh, you're talking about the hoverboarding Flash and Dale?
Yeah.
That was 1996.
You know what? I thought
That is repressed in my
I
memory.
thought that was as bad as it could get, and then I saw the sci-fi series.
Who saw the sci-fi
there
series?
was no sci-fi series.
I liked it.
Oh!
Stand up!
You are the one.
You're allowed. She is the 1%.
Yeah.
Well, I will echo, you know, how much the design of the movie really mirrored the comic strips. I really love Ming and Voltan, and definitely. I mean, how can you not like Brian Blessed or the Blessed Brian? I mean, you know.
It's a lie.
Exactly.
and he will forever be saying that phrase.
For the rest of his life.
For the rest of his life. It's a shame that there wasn't a sequel, but things just kind of fall apart sometimes, and it was Sam Jones, one of his first real serious films. So
and last.
And well, yeah, and until Ted.
Yeah.
I think if you look at what they were trying to do on the budget that they had, and in the comic book world that they were trying to live in, I mean, this was a comic book feature film, not like they do now. I mean, nowadays everything's got to be dark black leather, and everybody's got to be brooding and all that stuff. And here, everybody was kind of happy, and it was bright primary colors.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was the 80s.
Yeah, for me it was, for me Flash was just kind of larger than life. Gordon was just larger than life.
That's cheating.
Well done, Mike.
I haven't been called that.
And, just the entire package of the movie, obviously I was only a youngster back then, because I'm not as old as you people.
Wow.
Different.
I just wanted to add, I recently read an interview with Brian Blessed, and he actually was a Flash Gordon fan as a kid. And Zoltan was his favorite character. So he got to play his
that's
own
cool.
That's
character.
awesome.
And he loves being in Flash, especially for that reason. Thank you.
What's the question?
How did you feel about the 80s film?
I love the 80s film. We actually watched it earlier today, and I started watching clips of it online, and it's not just available for streaming or anything, so I bought it. And we're watching it, and he's like, God, you really want to watch this whole thing? And I'm like, yes, 3 times. I could just watch it right in a row. I mean, it's awesome. I do have the fond memories of it, and for some reason in my mind, it's related to Clash of the Titans, I think, because I watched those 2 films at the same time in my life over and over, and all the women's characters in both of those films kind of have that princessy, flowy kind of costuming design, which is so appealing. So, I could watch that movie over and over. And what I think is really interesting, and I don't know if anyone else wants to go here, but I think it's interesting how the character of Ming kind of changes over time, because he's in his original incarnation is kind of, I don't know if I want to say the word racist, but kind of in that vein.
Absolutely.
And so I think it's interesting how they've kind of evolved that to sort of get away from that as being the focus of his character, and sort of more making him more of an alien, like they did in I guess Defenders of the Earth. He was just totally green, he's totally not an Earth race or anything. He's just an alien character. So I don't know if any of you have any thoughts on that whole progression.
The evolution of Ming.
Yeah, well, he's one of my favorite villains of all time. He did start off as because of the Yellow Menace, exactly. Just like the Claw that was in the comics as well. Yes, Fu Manchu as well. He's kind of got. That's why it's so strange, because Flash Gordon has these weird sort of origins that don't make it as quite of a stand-up thing, but yet I think what came out of it. And maybe the reason why there's never been a sequel, really, and even mention of one, really, is because the movie itself seems like a really, really cool, happy accident. Everything just kind of came together with that.
Well, the story itself, it is science fiction, but it's rooted more in the tales of knights and quests. It's got its roots more in fantasy than it does in traditional hard science fiction. So if you're familiar with the serials as they appeared, and what happens next is because the movie kind of covers the beginnings, the origin story, as it were. But then afterwards, it's either Ming's descendants come back and try to retake the throne, or Ming himself at some of the later points. So, and it's more about the kingdoms of Mongo and stuff like that. So, it's not a typical sci-fi genre. And maybe that's probably one of the things that kind of throws it. But it's definitely made an impact. I mean, it's clear that RTD was a fan of the movie. Because how he brought back the Master. I mean, it's kind of very clear.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Don't you think that gave it a broader audience, though, to cross the sci-fi fantasy
of course,
if you will?
But especially with the year, if you think about the Prince Valiant comics that they were printing at the same time as Flash Gordon, you could have just put Prince Valiant on Mongo, and it would be more or less Flash Gordon, for at least a basic framework. At least that's my thought.
Mm-hmm.
You're the comic book.
Well, yes, but but as far as the movie goes, we're all completely wrong. I mean, the reason that the movie is successful is the Queen soundtrack.
Of course.
But that's what makes the movie really fascinating, is that it's part homage, it's part satire, it's part European art house film, it's part kitsch. It's like it's everything sort of rolled into one, and so you get this very strange pop culture yet experimental experience. It's unlike anything that's ever been made before or since. And I know people say that about a lot of movies, but when it comes to Flash Gordon, it really is. Like, you won't see anything like it again.
Right.
I explained it for years to people as a 2-hour Queen video.
That's fair.
Yes?
I was right. It was with Rocky Horror Picture Show in a lot of ways. Which came out only 3 years earlier.
I actually said that earlier when I was watching the movie. I was like, "There's something Rocky Horror about this."
Oh, Richard O'Brien's in it.
Yeah,
right.
Well, right.
Don't you think it's because it came out at like exactly the right time with the music and the whole thing and the look and the.
Oh, absolutely, and there's a weird. I don't mean to use the word synergy like some corporate-y guy. We got to make synergies. No, I think you're correct in that at that time, like he talked about, Star Wars had influenced all of these retro properties to come back into existence. The same year that Flash Gordon came out, Gil Gerard and Aaron Gray starred in the Buck Rogers television show, which had spawned off the 1979 movie that they had made. And of course, those two were competitors, and you had Buster Crabbe playing both Buck Rogers and Flash Gordon in the 30s, which was, I mean, you're right. Movies are about time and place, and that one just hit all the right notes at all the right time.
I think
I really love about the movie is the art direction, and I'm wondering if any of you know the story as to why they were able to use the original style, 20s, 30s style for a good portion of it, and not change it into something that was more Star Wars or something that went futuristic like Buck Rogers.
I think budget.
I think it was the budget, and I think they wanted to stay true to the original source and comic material. I mean, they had a lot of visuals thanks to, and not just Alex Raymond. There was a lot of very accomplished illustrators that worked on it. Al Williamson, who is one of my favorite illustrators. Period. He had a run on Flash Gordon that was just. I mean, if anybody could outdo Alex Raymond, it was Al Williamson. That stuff is gorgeous. And so they had a lot of things that people who were familiar with Flash Gordon, they didn't really need to storyboard it much because they had them right there, the panels and what the worlds look like. Now, they weren't able to bring all the alien creatures to life, I think, that they wanted to. I mean, obviously the Lion Men get the short shaft in the movie because Prince Thun is supposed to be like this big lion guy, right?
Right.
And instead, he's not. In fact, he's eliminated quite soon in the film.
I think Voltan is the limit of what they could probably pull off.
Probably.
But it looks so good.
That and little people in dye. In various colored dye.
About the lizard people.
Well, lizard people, right? They were there.
Yeah.
In the background.
So, but
That won't last for a few seconds.
yes.
I think the Filmation Saturday morning show was actually fairly close to the actual 1930s material, and the visuals were actually pretty damn good for a Saturday morning cartoon of the period.
Yeah. As we mentioned, the Filmation series was quite amazing, and especially because usually the Filmation stuff was stuff that you kind of saw, and they did it on the cheap. I mean, a lot of great cartoons were made from Filmation. But you got to see the same guy walking around the same background with just going.
Yeah,
by.
they used the same walking cycles.
Exactly.
So it's like that, right?
But I'll tell you one thing I will never forget from that Filmation series is Ming's entrance, because he had that like electric red curtain that he would come out of. That was just amazing. I'd never seen anything like it in cartoons.
Yeah, it doubled later as the Sorceress's Portal in Castle Grayskull. They used the same effect, but it was done in Flash Gordon first, and then they recycled it in other properties. And also Ming's daughter in that animated series was unnervingly alluring, like
and unnervingly similar to Tila.
Well, Debbie, as you mentioned, there's a lot of. I think the film captures it a lot, but there's a lot of sexuality in Flash Gordon. And I think also there's this European sensibility to it too. And I don't know if that's because it was produced by Tino De Laurentiis, but it seems to me that is a large part of what is attractive about the movie.
Well, yeah, and what's interesting is, I mean, you look at Dale and you look at Flash, and they're thank you, and they're very conservative in that regard. You know, Flash is gonna stay true to Dale, and everything, even though
You're doing it on purpose now, aren't you?
A little bit. Even though
He's sure tempted.
Even though Princess Aura is straddling him, he's going, my gosh, she's turning me on. He's trying not to think about her.
Mm-hmm.
He's trying to be the good guy. Whereas the people on Mongo, you get this idea that, especially Princess Aura, I mean, obviously she gets around a lot. And so it's weird because it is given that Dale and Flash are supposed to represent, kind of the upstanding, American values and, things like that, then you do see the very more sexualized, more sensualized Mongo comes off as very foreign and very European in many ways. And, even her accent.
Well, the accents are help, yeah.
Well, when Dale gets stuck into, Ming's room to become the sex slave, I mean, it's kind of like, it's pretty obvious what Ming's going to go after.
Yes, but, and she's smart enough to outfox him, and that was awesome. But, it's weird because, even as a little girl, I saw it, and and I'm like, I loved Dale, but I knew that Princess Aura was the really pretty one. Dale was cool, and I knew Flash should end up with Dale because, he
She's a good
should.
girl.
But at the same time, it was kind of upsetting because I'm like, but Princess Aura is cooler in some ways, and she's fun and she's mysterious, and I want Flash to end up with Dale, but I would rather be more like Princess Aura and get to wear the cool outfits and be exciting and be a little dangerous.
Be the naughty daddy's girl?
Yes, exactly.
There's one weird inconsistency with Dale in the movie, and I don't understand why it happened that way. I guess they just decided on, this would look cool, but Dale she's strong-willed, but she's usually at a tactical disadvantage throughout the movie, and so she's captured throughout 90% of the film in one way or the other. But yet, at one point, she manages to escape, and during her brief escape, she grabs a rifle and pulls this, parkour Jackie Chan one-handed somersault while killing a guy at the same time.
Yeah.
And you're like, whoa, this chick is going to kick butt. And then it never goes anywhere. She's just captured again. And I'm like, wait, she's the most dangerous character in this film for 1 second. How did that go away?
Rolled really well.
Wait.
Clytus, I'm bored.
What plaything can you offer me today?
An obscure body in the SK system. The inhabitants call it.
I have been waiting all my life for Clytus to say that to me. That is awesome.
Yeah, Clytus, I mean, that's something we haven't mentioned yet. Clytus and, what's her name in the black leather?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
She's the one I liked.
Are you able to sit in that outfit?
I can, yes.
Would you like to come up and be on the panel? I think we'd like to get your perspective on this.
You can have punch.
Wow, look at that.
Cool.
Wow.
That's awesome.
That is awesome.
And then
It
there's
suddenly turned into 50 Shades of
Come on
Flash.
around.
Actually, just briefly while he's getting settled, I agree that the music is wonderful and awesome, but I just find it so funny. Queen took a look at the rough cut of Highlander, and within a few hours came up with Who Wants to Live Forever.
Mm-hmm.
They had over a year and a half on
Flash.
Flash Gordon,
And
and
they
the best
go-
they could come up with Flash, Flash.
Read it.
Hey,
But-
you
Read it.
said number one.
But yes, but it's memorable. I mean, you know, it's how many years later, and we're still doing it.
Yes.
I mean, you know, it's
That's
great,
just
but I
cool.
mean, I just find it really odd.
And I do have to say, as a bit of a segue, the only reason I watched the film Ted was because friends said it's got Flash Gordon. You're gonna, and I cried every time Flash Gordon was on screen because I was so happy. I'm like, it's Flash Gordon.
And she really, really hates foul language.
I do.
Yeah.
So
we actually watched the whole movie.
I watched the whole movie.
And I swear to you that if we ever meet Sam Jones, it'll be just like that.
Thank you for saving every one of us.
You're welcome.
He acknowledged it.
But I think about, but even like, it's weird because Princess Aura and that image of, you know, the sexy, confident woman who goes after what she wants. I mean, that, you know, she was very groundbreaking in some ways, you know, especially when you compared her to a lot of other characters at the time. And I just realized as I was sitting here that the comic book character I created for an anthology short fiction, which I'm going to give away later, I put her in fuchsia and gold, and I never really realized that my entire style for her is actually based off Princess Aura.
Hello, Ming.
Yeah, right?
And I never realized it until somebody just mentioned to me right now.
So, oh yeah, you made your villain Ming.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the things that makes Flash Gordon great is it does tap into these
I never realized.
really great archetypes, and you know, especially as creative types, you find it popping up in your work, and you're like, oh, I want my, and then you like I said, all of a sudden I'm like, my character's like Princess Aura. She's shaped like Princess Aura. She wears the same colors as Princess Aura. You know, his villain suddenly weirdly is representative of Ming. You know,
And it never dawned on me either. That's the weird
and that's
thing.
the great part. It's like so deep in our subconscious that it just comes out in weird ways. But I think it shows what a great effect it had, especially on our generation.
Yeah, you can definitely tell that George Lucas was influenced with Princess Leia being, you know, so kick-ass and grabbing a gun and going and blowing stormtroopers away when every other guy around her is completely unable to hit one. So
I might also add that she has the second highest body count in the entire film.
yeah, absolutely.
Oh, there's a in the back.
I've often wondered one thing, and both things are concerning Clytus.
Uh-oh.
Why is it he gets impaled on spikes and his eyes bulge out of his head?
Have you been in
Because it looks awesome.
Air pressure.
There's one back there.
George and two, what is Clytus, is he part man, part machine?
He's all
what
cop.
happened, man?
See, I think he's
100% Clytus.
I think he's got a little the Darth Vader thing going on there, where he doesn't seem like he's completely, you know, a man.
Well,
but
we
then
have him here.
Well, there you go. He should just
kind
answer.
of Destro.
There's a lot of theories that go along on the internet that Clytus is not technically a human, just because of the way that both he and Kala disintegrate.
True.
And there's a school of thought that thinks that because they were such high-ranking members, that because Ming offs himself, we don't actually see how he dies. So it could just be that's their death is just collapse of their power, and they didn't get a chance to absorb it.
There's a question over there he's been trying to ask for like 5 minutes.
I was going to say that George Lucas thing, if you actually watch the old black and white serials, the Flash Forward and all the other sci-fi stuff, the way they open up every episode, exactly font-wise, is the same way they open up every Star Wars movie. So
Yep.
I mean, he was like totally influenced by almost all that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And also to your Queen thing, I think they did a lot more drugs and partying.
Yeah, they did it. They did it for like an entire year, and they're like, "Oh crap, we got to come up with something."
Exactly.
Flash.
Well, to be fair, I mean, I do know as far as the Queen contribution goes to Flash Gordon the movie. I mean, that was the one time and the only time that they actually scored
Right.
the whole movie.
Yes.
I mean,
Yes.
their goal wasn't to just come up with like rock hits or like just a song like they did with Highlander.
Right, right.
They actually said we're gonna score this entire movie.
And their score is beautiful.
It is.
Yeah.
And they actually had a much bigger hand in everything that had to do with that film than you would ever dream of.
Mhm.
You know, I mean, they were practically producing if they weren't. That was kind of like the level of involvement they took.
I made the crack earlier about the Queen videos, but if you look at some of their videos
Yep.
later after that movie, you can see it. The one
Yeah.
where he's got the bandolier of eyes.
Yep.
Absolutely. Any other people out there is there something about the Flash Gordon movie that is really awesome that we have not mentioned yet?
Okay.
The geek center of the movie is Munson. Munson is Porkins.
Yes.
Munson is Lieutenant Eckhart in Batman.
Yes.
He was in Superman 4.
Oh
and
my
he was
gosh.
In Indiana Jones.
Oh my God!
Wow.
It's
At-
4 degrees of
Timothy Dalton yet.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Timothy Dalton was awesome. I think what was amazing is you had some amazing actors in this film. You had Topol. From Fiddler on the Roof. And it's just like you look at some of these people and you're like, they're either already powerhouses or they're going to become really incredible, really respected actors.
Mhm.
And they're in this film, and it gives it more weight. I mean, you could have had so many other people playing Voltan, for example, and you wouldn't have believed it. But Brian Blessed as Voltan, you totally believe he's the leader of the Hawk people.
He's a bird brain.
Well, he's been playing it since he was a kid, likely.
Yeah.
Exactly. But I think the quality of acting in most cases in that film is actually higher than you'd expect given the cheese factor.
Poor Sam.
And I think it does help Sam a lot.
Yeah.
That that wonderful scene between Flash and Ming on the Hawkman's world, like
Yes.
when everybody else is gone, and it's just the two of them.
Yep.
Sam, I mean, look, Max is carrying that scene on his shoulders, but it's like it's such a great gesture because as an actor, he doesn't have to do that.
No.
He's not a rookie at this. He can just go, but he's really. It's almost like a wrestler, making another guy look good.
Yeah.
Taking a fall for a
Anybody could have
guy.
phoned in a performance.
Yeah.
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 And they didn't.
Yeah.
I do have one gripe though.
Oh.
And I'm going to steal this completely from you because we were talking about it earlier, Scott. Why did you need the pedal on the rocket ship? Why?
It was a different time.
Why do the Hawkmen have a flying, rocket thing when they fly? I don't. Why do they have that in their basement?
They need to be able to carry equipment, you see, and their own natural lift is only limited by.
Yeah.
Flash.
It's pretty good.
I really like the Gary Anderson effects on the ships.
Yeah.
On the actual rocket ships.
The War Rocket
very,
Ajax,
very,
Anderson-like.
Yep.
You can see the strength sometimes.
Yeah. Well.
But that's okay.
That's okay because you can get away with that because they all knew it was camp except and because it had this history in the serials of having ships on strings
with sparklers.
You can kind of get away with doing that.
Well,
too.
Does anyone know why was Sam Jones? Why was he dubbed for most of his performance?
Have you heard him speak?
I think he had a falling out with the producer.
Yes.
And so he refused to come
ADR.
back for
Yeah.
and I think that he said that it was mostly his representation he was allowing them to sort of speak for him at that time, and so he said they didn't really handle it very well, but he just went ahead and let them lead the way in terms of handling his disagreement with the producer of the film.
Well, when you're a young professional, especially when you have something so public, and it's your first time really out, you do rely heavily on the people representing you, and sometimes to your peril, So you know, it's one of those things. If had he made it longer in the industry, he probably would have learned to have taken the reins, you know, more. But alas.
Yeah.
I didn't realize he was dubbed.
Yeah, and when you know he's dubbed and you watch the movie, you're like, wow, whoever voiced this character must have nothing like the body structure of him. Because there's no way that voice is coming out of that guy. I mean, it's like Rick Astley. It's like there's no way.
Flash will never give us up.
It's true. He's never going to let us down.
How much of it was dubbed?
It was a large percent from what I was reading. It's, I mean, and you can tell, like in really key scenes, that it's not very well dubbed either.
I think another one of the interesting things about Flash is how it has stood the test of time. There was a lot of great sci-fi movies in that time that have been forgotten, but Flash and its campiness and the Queen soundtrack and the entire package of the movie has stood the test of time. I mean, we're still talking about it all these years later. It's amazing.
Yeah.
There's a depth to it, but there's also a simplicity to it, which is something that you don't see. I mean, right now, like, you know, it's so trendy, and it's the thing to like make all the heroes like, you know, broody, dimensional, like, you know. But back then, you know, you had the Christopher Reeve Superman, and you had the Sam Jones Flash Gordon, and you had the, you know, Gil Gerard Buck Rogers. I mean, these guys were just, you know, straight up heroes. They never did the wrong thing.
And they didn't lose the sense of humor of the original comics.
Yes.
Because there's some sort of, even if it's not over-the-top campy humor, it's still there. So it's sort of like the same with Batman. Batman had humor even with the darkness, which helped offset some of that.
Right. Well, and one of the things that was nice was you got the impression that the hero could actually sway people to his side just by doing the right thing and being consistent about it.
Definitely.
And he could give other people courage to do the right thing as well.
I would also like to add on to that. He never set out to be anything other than just a guy trying to get home.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He at the end of the movie, Baron took the line, not Flash. And I think that's very important.
Yeah, but you know, it was interesting for me. I mean, I know as a kid, you know, like Prince Baron, he was a bad guy until the end of the movie.
Also has the highest body count in the film, and he also is the only one who swears through the entire film. He is the only one.
Mm-hmm. You know, but so it's like he's a bad guy. Voltan is, you know, this character kind of in the middle where he's not bad, but he's certainly not, you know, good. You know, he's the guy that wants to rebel, but he doesn't want to get caught doing it. That's why he's helping out when Flash is having the big fight, you know, by hitting the one guy in the head, you know. But so as a kid, you're like, well, look at that. If you just keep persistent and you keep telling people, you know, what the right thing to do is, you eventually can reach a lot of people. And then there are people like Ming that you're never going to be able to reach. But it also
by a rocket.
Exactly, you know, as he should be. You know?
Well, you know, but that's what's interesting about the film, how it ends like that. They just sort of like, well, we've kind of run out of plot, so you know what? I've changed, and so have I.
That was awesome. You haven't changed. And you know, and Zarkov going, I haven't changed. You're like, oh man.
Yeah, we haven't really talked about the Zarkov performance that much either. Of course, it was one of the prime numbers of the Human Code.
He's awesome. The scene where they're mind washing him, that scared me so bad when I was little, especially when they take him all the way back to the womb, and that was just really disturbing to me. You know, that freaked me out a lot.
It kind of reminded me of that scene in the Dark Crystal where they were like sucking the memories out of that.
Yeah, the podlings.
Totally.
Draining the essence.
Exactly. Yeah.
Totally. But what a great line, though. We're going to empty your mind like we would empty your pockets.
Yes.
I mean, who else has a line that is that deep when it comes to erasing someone else's entire life?
I know.
You did.
But yeah, it's creepy, but that, you know, the actor, he gave it such gusto, and he was so Yeah, and he's an interesting character because in the beginning, like, oh, he's a villain. He's kidnapping them and taking them to another planet, but no, he's not the villain. He just needs help. He can't do this
in
by
many
himself.
ways.
Many ways.
I always thought it was weird that his laboratory was in a greenhouse.
Yeah. But the funny thing was that he was crazy, but he was right.
Yes.
Aliens!
Aliens! Yes.
Exactly.
Ancient
It's like that guy from the History Channel.
Yes.
Exactly.
I think we had a question right here.
Yeah, this is off the subject. I was wondering, the thing that always kind of got me was the princess's eyes. Were they really like that, or that was just special effects of the time?
Contact?
You,
I don't know.
You mean her actual eyes or her makeup?
Well, her eyes, did they really look like that, or they had something
The
on?
color.
I
Yeah.
think they were pretty much
Contacts,
like
I think.
that. I
I
mean,
don't even think they had colored lenses back then.
she was an Italian actress, so
They were like really, from what I remember, very transparent and bright somehow.
She couldn't cry, so the tear ducts would just recolor the eye. They didn't know how to cry, remember?
Oh, that's
doesn't know
true.
what
That's
she doesn't know
true.
what crying is.
Yeah, yeah.
And until her father passed.
There's no crying in Flash.
Yeah.
So I can imagine that there's at least a few fans of Flash Gordon here.
Yeah.
Is that right? Are you guys fans of
Yeah.
Flash?
I don't think Midas is a fan.
In honor of Flash this year, Artsy is going to be performing Dash Cardigan, which is a Flash Gordon pastiche. It will be at the Hyatt on Friday evening at 7 p.m. Do come. It's very funny. It's very fun. I'm not in it, but my friends at the Atlanta Radio Theater Company do a really great job doing audio drama, radio drama. If you're interested in their schedule also, there are bookmarks, handy bookmarks. There is one misprint. If you're looking for the dealer's table for the Atlanta Radio Theater Company, it is not correct on here. So you'll have to try and find that otherwise. But yeah, you may want to show up for that. It
Sasha,
should be
what's
fun.
the name of the villain? Bing?
I'm not telling you.
That's awesome.
But you're going to have to come up with a new tagline. It's going to be Dash. And I
Oh.
Yes.
Okay, talk about what Flash Gordon was up against. He was up against Popeye. Robert Alton came out the same weekend, 1980. Only reason because Robin Williams, Popeye, is being played a lot of Netflix in memorial to Robin Williams and stuff like that. And that doesn't stand up as well, even though Robert Alton probably is a much better director.
It's true. I don't think it's written as well. Lorenzo Semple Jr. gets a lot of credit, from my mind, for Flash because there's so many great lines. That movie has so many quotable lines because obviously it's a great script and it's, like you said, performed by really great actors. Over the top. And a lot of those lines are burned in our brains not because we watch the movie and over again, which we have, but because we listen to the soundtrack, which marketing genius. Yes, but they put so many of the lines in the soundtrack that when you listen to the soundtrack over and over and over again, you just you get all those lines.
And one of the things that's great about it is some films and a lot of television shows from that period do not stand up because their pacing is so different and often very clunky. And one of the great things about the Flash Gordon film is that thing really moves.
Yeah.
They go a lot of places, do a lot of things, but it's never slow. It's never dull, And they're constant, and things are constantly in motion, and then you get that really rich texture and that tapestry they're working on with all those colors and everything else. So there's no time for your brain to actually stop and think too hard because you're busy being swept away with the action, and you're also paying attention to how everything looks visually.
So I think one of the biggest questions that
Yeah,
I
she had a
have,
question.
just one second. One of the biggest questions that I have was, with all those actors, with all that talent that they assembled, why did they go camp?
I think it was a smart decision by Hodges, but I think once they realized that it was never really gonna, like, if they played it straight, it was just not gonna work because they'd be laughed at. Maybe there was a fear there. But certainly, I think just getting the script and knowing, just getting a feel for it, they kind of just went with that. With the design work and everything like that, I think they just knew it was going to be over the top. And when you go over the top, then you're either out on a ledge or you pull it back and you're in camp territory.
I think today they would try to be a little bit more straight with it.
Yeah.
But then you'd end up with some empty forest in Vancouver.
We don't talk about that.
Well, supposedly we are getting a new one.
Oh,
we are.
No.
There are pre-production. Of course, there's been it's been seems like every other month I hear that someone's working on the script. So I'm not sure exactly who it is right now, but I know it's a property that they want to pursue, despite the fact that the sci-fi series didn't last that long. I think they do think that it's going to be rebooted. I doubt it'll be anything like the 80s movie. But on that note, I do want to say that if there are Flash Gordon fans out there that have not checked out the recent comic book by Dynamite, they really need to do so. Jeff Parker is writing it, and it's really, really, really good. I believe Evan Shaner is drawing it, and it's illustrated beautifully. And if you like Flash Gordon, there's a series that started off that he's introduced with, and that was they couldn't get the rights to Defenders of the Earth, so they called it King's Watch. And it's actually really good. It introduces Ming attacking Earth, and then it leads into the Flash Gordon series, which is current now. But I definitely recommend you guys check that out.
Let's go. Get the one in the back there.
Yeah, I was gonna say, speaking as the one person who liked the sci-fi series, I think its death knell was that we've all been talking about why we love the original movie, that so many things all just clashed together and worked. It's camp, the fact that the actors took it seriously, the costumes, and unfortunately the series came out at the same time. They were reimagining everything and making everything darker and more realistic and more relevant, and it didn't have any of why we're all here in this room, that we love the camp and the color and the fun and the quotable lines that the original movie and even that the serials all had going for it, and that's what everybody tuned in.
And they used the music in the trailers, but never in the show.
Right.
Yes. They made an absolutely awesome Flash Gordon series. You guys should check it out. It's called Farscape.
The biggest crime of that show is the fact that Ming wasn't really Ming. He was just some evil guy.
Yeah.
Bigwig.
Yeah, and you're right. It was, by comparison, it was dreary.
Yes.
Right.
And that's not.
It was a different show with the same name.
Yeah, exactly.
And like said, it was like Scott said, it was really false advertising, because as soon as they use the music, you're expecting the same
it to
story
be like
line.
that. And then
they lied.
They did. And I think had they not lied like that, I wouldn't have spent the entire pilot going,
I'm waiting for it.
I'm waiting for them to at least use the Queen music, because it's been in all the trailers.
Yep.
Why are they not using? Oh well, maybe they're not using it in the pilot. Maybe it'll be in episode 2.
Right, because the pilot didn't have an opening title sequence. And
Right.
you're like,
So
it's okay.
It'll be in episode 2. No. Apparently, it's not going to be anywhere, and this doesn't look like what I thought.
All of a sudden, there was this dark cloud.
Yes, it passed over our house, and
Debbie smash.
This is not my Flash.
I turned into Fuchsia Hulk, and I was mad, and could not give the series a fair shake because of that, to be honest.
To their credit, they did have Sam Jones in an episode.
Yeah, that's true.
That's the only credit
Did
I'm going to
they?
give. That's the only credit I'm going to give them. Yes, all the way in the back.
I missed the beginning of the panel, but I assume that you talked about the serial, right?
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Okay, but anyway, to me, the historical perspective is that was far, larger than the 1980 movie. I mean, that was arguably the biggest science fiction film of the 30s. Unless you count Frankenstein as a science fiction film. But anyway, and it had iconic actors playing iconic roles. Buster Crabbe, Charles Middleton playing Ming,
Yes.
and Gene Rogers playing what's her face name. But anyway, Gene Rogers, I would argue, was much more beautiful than Aura in that film, and
Might
she
give you
wore
that.
very skimpy outfits and has gorgeous blonde hair falling down, and they covered her up in the next series, and actually dyed her hair black so she wouldn't be so sexy. The spaceships are obviously ridiculously goofy, and they didn't have Queen music. But I mean, that was such an iconic film that it produced 2 sequel serials plus Buck Rogers, and Buster Crabbe was playing the Buck Rogers show 50 years later.
We talked about that.
Yeah, I think that's also why they did it as camp, because they were looking back at these old serials and they said, we got to do it like that.
Yeah.
So just a historical
Good point.
perspective, and
Good point.
the Library of Congress put the serial into the National Registry of Films in 1996 because they thought it was so historic.
Well,
yep.
That's
and
cool.
Yes, it's got a huge history. Flash has got a huge history. Oh, yeah.
Well, I don't know if you covered it yet. You're speaking of the Dynamite comics right now.
Right.
Then if you've been following the current series by Mike Millar called Starlight.
I've seen it, and it looks like a follow-up to. It looks like.
Well, he's not Flash Gordon, but they changed the name.
Right.
Basically, it's sort of along the lines of, you know, how Frank Miller's Dark Knight Returns in the '80s was an older Batman coming out of retirement. This is that, and the art is very similar to an Alex Raymond style. It's really harkens back to the classic comic strips and all the really Flash Gordon. It's pretty much Flash Gordon. They just gave him a different name.
it isn't Dash, is it?
It's Crash. It's certainly not Flesh Gordon.
Oh.
I was waiting.
Let's see. What time was that?
I
Next
know.
panel? Wow, with only 6 minutes to go.
Yeah, only 6 minutes to go.
Yes.
Okay, the one thing I don't know you mentioned was the fact that John Carter came before Flash Gordon. The movie came like 25 years afterwards, and the John Carter movie just totally. I mean, I don't think it made money. It made enough money to develop it for a sequel. It cost
broke my heart, too.
$220 million.
Yeah.
IMAX, 3D, and it was just kind of dull. Where you're wondering, but at the same time,
That was
John
Disney's
Carter-
fault.
Yeah, Disney threw it under the bus.
Look,
Well, they also
yeah.
acquired Star Wars right about that time too.
That would be in a
That's a
panel.
whole other
I was
panel.
going to say that's a whole other panel unto itself. Why John Carter the movie didn't make it, but it's a true testament that yes, John Carter was definitely an influence to the original Flash Gordon creation strips, and I hope that the new Flash Gordon movie that we get, whatever form, because he's not dead. I mean, 80 years strong, we'll get another
He'll
one.
keep going, yeah.
And
Absolutely.
I just hope that it has better luck than John Carter did when he comes back.
But
so.
do you think they'll do it? They won't do it campy though. They'll do it straight.
I can only hope. No, they'll do it darker and edgier.
Maybe they'll do Guardians of the Galaxy style.
Well,
See,
hopefully
that would work.
With the
You know?
success
That would
of
work.
Guardians, I think that there's a lot more hope than we had 3 months ago.
That would
Exactly.
totally work. That would
Amen
totally
to
work.
that.
Guardians of the Galaxy is Hollywood going, hey, fun. You remember fun?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Exactly.
Just vaguely.
Yeah, I've already heard
Yeah.
there's that space opera, fun space opera, is now the trend in Hollywood. So let's hopefully that Flash Gordon comes
Thank
back
God.
because he is all of that.
Yes, he's
absolutely
fun space
is.
opera.
So cool. Well, on that note,
Here's a question.
are we done or one question? One last
We
question.
got one more question. We got time for one more.
You're the
I was
last.
gonna say, like, right around the 90s when the Phantom and the Shadow came out, I thought they were going to come out like Flash then too. Those are somewhat campy,
Yeah.
not creepy as well, so that's what I was hoping. I mean,
I like the Shadow film.
Do you like the Shadow film?
Yep.
When the panel is over,
Yep.
you who like the sci-fi movie, I'm going to give you my book.
Oh!
Since you are the only person in this room.
To admit it publicly. All right. Have a good DragonCon, everybody. Come back to this room
Oh, wait,
for
wait,
more
wait,
awesome
wait,
programming.
hold up.
Yes.
What's the
You guys have
call?
to do the Flash?
What's the
Flash jump! Flash jump!
Flash jump.
Oh, wait.
I can't jump. So.
You don't jump. But the
You
rest
stay
of us
where
jump.
you're at. Yeah.
Ha! Everybody. Flash
Ready?
jump.
Right? You saved your Earth.
Right?
Please don't break the stage. I need it for the weekend.
Yeah. You saved your panel. You
Okay,
saved your
do it.
Yes.
Ready?
1, 2, 3.
Yeah!